Now, when I got my first producing job, I was so excited when I was asked to quote on a job. I was like all night preparing the spreadsheet, preparing concept arts, and really want to win the job. And I spent, a long time breaking down the script. So you can imagine how disappointed I was when I was told, oh, we gave it to NPC or we gave it to another studio in Canada. I'm like, damn you, I spent a week on this. And it's a lesson learned. So my advice is, whenever you're at this stage, obviously make the best presentation. It's very important to make the best presentation. But, yeah, sure.
Sorry, for the script, is it important we need to know the producer budget?
At this stage?
At this stage.
Yeah, but I'm gonna explain that. But that's a very good question, yes. This is just an overview, but I'm gonna break down exactly what you asked. But it's a very good question, because that's exactly the question you need to ask. But you don't want to start that communication right away. When a client calls you and say, hey, I've got this great project, you could ask, what sort of budget is the film? Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because that gives you an idea, right, of whether they're a serious project or not, right? But don't ask them how much money have you got, because they're like, well, because a lot of the time they won't tell you. They won't tell you what the budget is for visual effects. The reason why is because firstly, they don't know. That's why they've come to you. Most of the time they come to you because they need to understand how much is this going to cost us in visual effects, and they don't know. Unless it's Marvel or Warner Brothers, which they have their own production supervisors and production producers, and they know how much they want to spend. But it's usually at this stage. Previs. So sometimes what you may get is they shortlist, right? So we know what shortlist mean, yeah? So they ask 10 studios to bid, including yourself, and then they shortlist it down to the best 3 that they want to work. Or sometimes they just select you, but they're still not too sure. Hussin?
Yeah.
Okay. Technical issue.
You just have to know it's just the machine.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so what they sometimes do is they ask you, they say, listen, we're very interested in working with you as a company, okay? But we're not too sure how we're going to do this. So they come to you for help. And sometimes they come to you to ask you to do previs, okay? And sometimes you do that for free to help them, but you make sure on the condition that if they use that previs, then you get the contract. Never do work for free for the sake of doing work for free. I've done it, and sometimes you want to do it because you want to help the company and you're trying to, you're trying to give a good impression, but it becomes very dangerous because when you're a producer, you're not just a producer for yourself. You're representing the company you work for. Every penny you spend is not your money, it's the company's money, okay? It's the project money. And if you do work for free, you're still using artists, you're using freelancers, you're using staff. You've got the electricity to pay for. You have to think about these sort of things when you're producing. It's not just about the pretty picture on the screen. You need to think about that, it's very important. So during this stage, whatever money you spend on previs, on concept art, on getting your producer to break down, that's your investment. You should make a note of that somewhere, how much money you spend. For example, you may have hired a good previs artist, yeah? And you spent, I don't know, you spent £1,000 for 1 week, right? For example, on this previs artist. And later you win the job, okay? Make sure somewhere in your numbers, which I'll show you later how to do that, you get that money back. Because right at this stage, you can't go and invoice the client for previs. They're like, well, we're not going to pay for it because we haven't got the job yet. So, but keep that somewhere. Just remember everything you spend. I'll give you an example of what previs is. What previs, I mean, apologies for people that know what previs is, but for those of you who don't, it's an example of previs I've done. So I can't really see it too well in this. This is a previs where I just take a simple 3D model, and this was more to do with working out the framing, the angles, okay? and this is what the finished music video looked like. This is for a music video we did. So it's very similar, same angle. This was very, very instrumental because music videos don't have big budgets. Right? How many people here worked on music videos? Oh, you guys. Okay, you don't. Okay, good. But you all know what music videos are, right? Cool. So they're really fun. Music videos are good because they're experimental. You can try new things out, and they're fun to work on. But they don't necessarily have the biggest of budgets because it's music. Unless you're Taylor Swift or someone, right? So with this, they had such a small budget. So I supervised it and directed it, but the client, the production company, said, you've only got this amount of money, that means you only have 2 days to shoot the video. Which means that I had to make sure that my cinematographer, my camera guy, my DP, knew exactly what lenses to rent, how many lights we need to use, how big's the location, what camera to use. We need to make those decisions before we go on set. So what we did was we used previs to figure out what lenses we needed. So we knew we needed 24mm, we needed 18mm, we needed 35mm. We knew the sort of camera we wanted to shoot on because of the amount of sort of grading we was going to do. So we need something with quite good latitude. But more importantly, we needed a camera that we could afford. When you're a producer, the big word you're going to use is, can I afford it? And there's 2 words in the back of your head when you're a producer. It's time and money. Schedule and budget. They're the things that you're constantly in the back of your head. So that's what, doesn't matter how big the project is. This is a small project, we still have to have that in the back of my mind. Also, I just want to quickly talk about a bit more on previs actually, because I think previs, do we all know what previs is here now, right? Yeah? Anyone here that doesn't know what previs is? Doesn't matter if you don't? Okay, so you know what previs is? Yeah, good, we all know what previs is. Okay. For those of you who don't, because I know there's some shy guys here, basically previs is like a moving version of storyboard. It's a rough animated version of what the film would look like. Okay, that's previs. So what I did was I'll show you the previs what I did. Okay. So this is an example. This is a short film that I did called Sync, and what we did on this is we had 1 day to shoot it in an underground car park, okay? Because that's all we had time for. Which means that I didn't have time to try and look for the angle, or try experimenting. We didn't have time for that, right? Every time someone, members of your team, members of your crew is standing around, that's money wasted. That's time ticking away. Because when it reaches 6 o'clock, you've got to leave. Now we had to leave here 6 o'clock, which means that we need to stop shooting at 4 o'clock. Why is that? Anyone? You need to pack up. Exactly. You need to pack up and leave it clean. Because if you don't, they'll never use you again. Second, the camera kit is very sensitive. So you make sure you pack it properly. You make sure all of your memory cards are stored and logged correctly. You need time for that. You can't rush this stuff. This is why you have a schedule. So we made sure for the previs, 2 weeks before shooting, me, the cinematographer, and another person went to visit the location, and we measured the whole car park. Just with a measuring tape. Nothing fancy, no laser pen, just a measuring tape. And on my iPhone, took lots of photographs. Just photographed in panoramics, yeah? I then gave all that information to my friend David, who used Google SketchUp to rebuild the car park. And then the van and this objects here, download for free on Google SketchUp. So my previs cost me nothing. See? How you can get something for free, very easy, just by being smart, Google SketchUp. But with this, I was able to then sit with my camera guy and really work out where we can put our camera, where we should put the van, how many guys, how many actors we had, and really work it out. Even from the top view, see how much space we've got. If we put a camera here, we're gonna have another camera here, we may even have another camera here, and they don't see each other. Map it all out on this. This took about 2 days, 3 days to do, but it saved us thousands of pounds it saved us because we knew what we were shooting. So always think of it as a producer. Think about previs. Budget time for previs if you can. So that's one example. Now another example of previs is, you're going to like this, is very interesting. So I worked for a company called Prime Focus many years ago, and I was asked by a client at Pinewood Studios that they want to pitch for a film, okay? They want to pitch for a film. They have an idea for a film, and they want to show it to their investors. So they came to us and said, can you make us a previs that looks quite good? It's based on an animated film, right? That's pretty much a nice way of saying it. And it had to show the vision of the film. Now there's different ways of doing that. So this is one previs that we did. Now I'm not sure if this will look good on here. Okay, it's a little bit dark on that projector, but the idea of that, I'll just scroll through it. All of this was not rendered. What I'm trying to say is, this was all in real time, using the graphics processor, the GPU. This is the thing about previs. The reason why you only need a small team and small resources is you don't need, like an animated film, you model your characters, your environment, you render out your passes, and then you composite it, right? That's quite a big thing, right? With this, everything was running inside Maya, so we all know the software Maya, and inside the viewport, we rendered this in real time, which meant that the director and the producer would come sit with us, and we can come out with 20, 30, 40 shots in one day, just render it out, because it's captured in real time. There's no actual rendering of frames. So what we did this, we added some sound into it, and it had to feel like a big Hollywood movie. What we'll do is, I think at lunchtime I'll show it on my screen, because it's really horrible, this projector. So this is sort of thing that, let's scroll through here. Yeah, it's really dark on that. But anyway, so this was about 3 minutes long, okay? And it's interesting because from that, they then went and raised like $20 million or something to make a movie. And the reason I'm telling you this is because sometimes that's the sort of work you may get. You may not necessarily get work as visual effects work on an actual movie, but sometimes you're getting asked at early stages. Who's seen the film called Watchmen? Watchmen, yeah? Good classic movie. Okay, so this is very interesting. So in about 2009, I think it was, I worked on something called The Dark Knight, you know, the Batman film, and I was a post-viz compositor. So post-viz is where you take previs, you take live action, you put it together and try and find the look, right? So I did a lot of that. While working there, I saw a clip from the film Watchmen. But here's the interesting thing. The director's name was Paul Greengrass, the guy who did Born Identity or Born Supremacy. And I'm like, that's wrong, because I'm pretty sure Zack Snyder directed this. And this is when they told me, before Zack Snyder joined, they were looking for directors, and Warner Brothers gave a little bit of money to each director to show their vision of the film. And that was his vision, and they did it all in previs. So that's an interesting way of getting involved in a film, is by getting involved at the early stages previs. Now, as you can imagine, if you did the previs for a film like Watchmen, and they liked your previs, you're most likely going to move on and do more work with the company. So always think about that. Whenever you're pitching your company for work, offer previs, offer visual effects in pre-production. It's a good business, but it's also a safer way to engage with clients. But previs is very good for that. Okay, so the other thing is on-set supervising. So how many people here have actually done any supervising or been on a film set before? Cool, good. So as you can imagine,
I'm sorry.
that's right, come on in, come on in. Grab it anywhere, it's good. As you can imagine, for those of you who've been on set, it can be a bit boring sometimes. You're standing, you're waiting around, right? You're waiting constantly. But if you're a smart visual effects supervisor, like me, no, you use that time to get as much information on the set. So I have my camera. I will photograph everything in the set. I'll photograph the ground. I'll photograph the wall, because you never know later. They may want to replace something in that shot, and you need the texture for that wall. So photograph, catalog everything, make lots of notes. Talk to the camera assistants. Don't talk to the cinematographer, because he or her don't have time to deal with you. Also, for those of you who've been on set, who have you found to be the most important person to talk to when you're on set? Maybe? Yeah. Well, you'll be surprised, actually, the first AD. The first AD, the first assistant director. And the reason why is because the first AD, his or her job, is the one that runs the set. So if you want time to do your checkerboard, you want time to shoot your lens grid, you want time to shoot the HDRI, or you see something in the monitor that you think, oh, that's going to be a problem with visual effects, don't talk to the director about it. The director doesn't care. The director's got a lot on his or her mind about telling the story, dealing with the actors. They don't really think about visual effects. Talk to the first AD, explain to the first AD, and say, listen, I've just seen this shot, you put a green screen there, but you've got a woman here with lots of hair blowing. Can you put another green screen, or can you put a white card if she's got black hair? Or can can I put some tracking markers? Ask the first AD, and then they will find time for you to do that. Trust me, it's the best way to do it. Also, as for those of you who've been on set before, you're the first one on set and the last one to leave. Sometimes, I've been on set at 5 in the morning, but the shot that they're shooting that involves visual effects doesn't happen until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But you still need to turn up on time, because the world of being on a film set is very different to the world being in a visual effects company. In a visual effects company, you can come in late, it's fine. You do your shots and work till whatever hours. On a film set, there's this efficacy, it's the respect that everyone needs to be on set at the same time. It doesn't matter if you're visual effects or not, you still have to be on set. So always respect the on-set. And trust me, if you're on time and you respect the on-set rules, and then you ask that you want some time to put tracking markers, or you need to talk to the director to explain an idea you have that will help the visual effects sequence, they will do it for you. So always remember that on set. Everyone knows what this is? Distortion grid. Do you know what that's for, right? What's it for?
To determine what type of lens is used.
Correct. Now, why do you think we need that? Why is it important that we need to understand what lenses are being used, and why the distortion is important? Yeah, exactly. Every lens, every single lens is different. You can have 3 35mm lens, right? They're the same millimeter, but optically, the glass is different. It's the distortion, it's just the natural aberration that's in the lens is different. When you're doing a computer graphic and you're putting a CG camera, you have to tell the computer everything that that camera is doing. So you can have the most beautiful CG character, the most photorealistic CG character. It may be cropped very well, but if you haven't matched the lens, it'll always look a bit wrong. And you can't really figure out what's wrong with it, but there's a lot of times to do with distortion. Also, distortion helps with tracking, camera tracking, right? So you may want to undistort the plate. Or sometimes, what I tend to use, you can just tell by looking at the chart if you've got distortion or how much distortion there is, and then you can tweak it manually if you want to. Now here's a tip. When you're shooting the lens grid, make sure that whoever's shooting the lens grid, shoot it from the actual lens. Believe me, I've seen some idiots out there take a DSLR camera and shoot the lens grid. I've done the lens grid, guys. Like, that's useless. I need the lens. So what you need to do is, while people are shooting, while you're waiting, go to the camera system. They have the lens boxes and they have the name of the lenses on. Make a note of it. Ask the first AD, during lunch break or when they're changing memory cards or drives, that can we spend 5 minutes shooting lens grid. This should never disrupt the film. This can be shot anytime. You can shoot this early in the morning, when they're packing up, you can shoot this lunchtime, you shoot that's fine. This and this, on the other hand, you need to shoot this on time because they require lighting. The reason I use a color chart, because the red, the blue, the greens, these colors look different in different lighting conditions. I leave that chart here because I want to do CG in this room. The colors are different. This is very important to shoot correctly. The chrome ball, who knows what that's for? This one here. HDR. Well, what's it for? Reflection. Reflection, exactly. Now, whenever I have an HDR ball, I have a ball where one side is like this, on the other side I've got it grey. And the grey colour is a light diffusion. It's so simple. It's a simple thing. And you look really cool on set as well, walking around with, oh, this is guy. So you get some attention, right? But it's very important you shoot this properly. And this again, is very helpful for CG. For when they're lighting, and just in general, just to see the spherical world. And again, from a producer's point of view, why should a producer care about this, you're thinking, right? That's a creative thing. Wrong. Producer needs to understand every one of this thing, because, like I said, everything that's being done on the project has a number attached to it, has money attached to it. So when you send your visual effects supervisor on set, you have to charge the client for the visual effects supervisor time. You have to. But believe me, clients don't want to pay for it. Clients don't want to pay for supervisors. Many times I've had clients go, oh, don't worry, we don't need a supervisor, it's fine, we've got it under control. And they say this because they don't want to spend money on it. So your job as a producer is to sort of educate them and tell them why they need a supervisor. Don't tell them they have to have a supervisor. What I do, here's an example, right? When I was on set, on location, there was a big camera rig, yeah? A big camera rig. And it was just like a tripod with some cables. And it was like in the corner there. But it was in shot. I was looking at the monitor and I could see it in shot. So I asked the first AD, I said, listen, do you think we'll be able to move that? Because, you know, it's in the shot and it's not supposed to be in there. And guess what the first AD told me? Fix it in post. Fix it in post! Are you mad? I'm like, do you know how long it's going to take to paint that out? It's going to take a week's work. And you know what they said? Don't worry about it, we're nearly finished, we've got one more shot and we're done. Just fix that later, HaZ in post. Now, I was pretty surprised. I'm like, only 10 seconds to move it. So what I said was like, sure, we'll fix it in post. But just to tell you now, so instead of the first AD, I went to the producer, the line producer for the film, not the first AD. I said, fine. So I go to the line producer, listen, I've just asked the first AD to remove this. I know you guys want to finish, but here's the thing. I'm happy to remove it in post, but it's £1,000 plus to remove it. It's 1 week to remove that. Or you can save yourself a lot of money here if you just move it now. They're like, okay, fine, move it. Because they want to save money. That's the producer's job. That's how you communicate. You give them the option. And I guarantee you they take the option that ends up with no money spent. Right? So that's what you have to think about. That's why you should always look at the monitor. Okay, so once the shooting's finished, we now have to take the material, right? And we have to then kind of like conform the material, we call it. Now, this stage is very important as well. Just like when we're shooting, we have to make sure we take the right information, the right lens grid. We have to make sure that we're getting the right frames rendered out from the edit, the right proxies, so that we can do offlines, the right format of the frames so that the compositors can have material to work with that has a lot of dynamic range. And again, the producer's job is to be involved. But now, the producer has to talk to someone else in this pipeline. The VFX producer talks to the post-producer, okay? So the post-production producer is someone that works for the post-production company. The post-production company is the company that does the picture, grading, the editorial, the conforming, the final deliverables, the audio. That's the post-production. And this is the thing I need to tell everyone. And I tell everyone this every time. Every project I work on is the same. Visual effects and post-production are different. They're not the same thing. Okay? The number of times I get clients ring me up and go, hey, are you going to do the grade and the audio sound effects, right? I'm like, no. They go, oh, but you're post-production. I'm like, no, we're visual effects. Isn't that the same thing? No, it's not the same thing. So this is why, again, the VFX producer, it's why the producer needs to be on the set. The VFX producer may not be creative on the set. They're not needed. Some are. I'm very creative on the set, but you don't need to be. But what you need to be is keep your ear open, and listen to the conversation going on. Be in all the meetings. You know, when the post-producer is having a meeting with the producer of the film, be in that meeting. You don't need to say anything, but be in that meeting, because if you're not in that meeting and something happens, they're going to say, well, you should have been in that meeting. So, in this stage, you'll deal with the post-production producer. And the post-production producer will ask you several questions. What file format do you want to work in? And this is all down to your studio pipeline. I like to work in DPX. You guys work in DPXs? Yeah. Some work with some work with like DNG files. Yeah, it all depends. DPX is quite standard. I find it because everyone understands them, most software understands them. And most post-production companies can export it. The other thing I always ask when I'm producing, visual effect producing, I ask the post-production company, can you give me everything as a log? Right? You want to know what log is? Raw? Let me show you an example. Okay. So this is the raw footage. It's a bit washy. And this is the tech grade. Now here's the thing. Sometimes, on like the show Aliens, the Alien show I worked on, I didn't ask for the log or raw footage. I asked for footage that had a technical grade done on it. Does anyone know what a tech grade is? Okay. For those who don't, a technical grade is where you balance all the black levels and the white levels. Because we can do compositing and tracking on an image like this. This is not the final look. This is not the creative look. This is a technical look to make sure that we can do work on it. It looks pleasing to the eye. This obviously is the raw image, it's the negative, right? And so if you want to work with that, make sure you get a lookup table, a LUT. Right? We know what a LUT is? Okay, for those who don't know what a LUT is, it's a file with a curve. Color is dealt with curves. Okay? And the post-production company, the colorist or the editor will have a curve. Your job as a VFX producer is that you're in the middle. This is the editors, they're editing the film, and your visual effects company is here. You're getting information between the two and making sure they're all talked and they're all on the same page. If one doesn't know what's going on, for example, if the editor's done a new version of the edit and they've shortened the shot, but your visual effects artist is working on a longer shot, then that's a problem. Because your artist is working on 100 more frames when in the edit they've chopped the frames down to like, it's now a 50 frame shot. Very important, always communicate. And that's part of your job as a VFX producer. That's why a lot of VFX producers are always running around, and that's why they always work on laptops, because they're always everywhere.
Sorry, we've got our Dubai.
Hello, welcome. Hi.
Have a seat anywhere. Salman, can you give her the book, please? Who else came in? This came in. You just you are Isaac.
Yeah? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Don't worry, you haven't missed too much. It's a booklet as well, so yeah, good. Okay, so does everything make sense so far? Yeah? Okay, cool. We haven't got to the visual effects part yet. This is just still free. So that just shows you how much work there is from a visual effects producing point of view before any visual effects is being done. Yeah. Sure.
It's a lot, I know. The technical grade black and white. Is
Yeah.
it a lot? Or
Correct, it is, yes. So the technical grade is the process, and the final output, the result, of that tech grade is in the LUT. But the LUT is only a reference, remember that. So your artist should never render